When Ryan Leslie delivered the commencement speech at Harvard University in the 1990s, the then 19-year-old recording artist and music producer told the audience that his plan was to become a musical superstar. Some in the crowd laughed, but Leslie has now silenced that laughter by becoming a chart-topping music producer and a recording artist. He's making noise far beyond the U.S. I sat down with Leslie to talk about his journey and his future. You made a lot of noise outside the United States in the past year. What have you been doing?
Been touring, you know. I've really transitioned my business from more of the music production and behind the scenes work to being the front man and, you know, pursuing that childhood dream of being a full-fledged rock star.
Is it the accent, the height, or the way she walking? Am I dreaming on my sleepwalking? Got my arms outstretched so I don't want to be there.
And that was consistently your dream from the beginning. I can remember the first time I met you, you told me that this is when you were a producer for Bad Boy, and you told me that Tommy Mottola and Puffy used to always tell you, why do you want to be an artist? You're hustling backwards.
Right.
What did they mean by that, and why did you persist to continue to become an artist?
Well, I think they really, being the luminaries that they are and the moguls that they are, you know, they were talking much more in terms of just the generation of income. And for me, generating income in a way that, you know, is just left of center of what you love to do is not the way I want to live, you know. And I feel like the American dream, which is, you know, what I really consider myself the embodiment of, I feel like the American dream is being able to make a living doing what you love to do. And so for me, production was always just a stepping stone to amass enough money so that eventually, as the music industry shifted, I could buy my contract out and reinvest all the money that I had earned into doing what I really love to do, which is being on stage, playing, and you know, just going, running around the world and playing shows for screaming audiences all over the world.
Let's go back, because a lot of people know your story, but some people are just starting to find out about Ryan Leslie. At 15 years old, you went to Harvard, scored 1,600 on the SAT.
Done your research.
Graduated at 19, and at 19, when you gave the commencement speech at Harvard, you said that you wanted to be a performer, and some people laughed. Tell me about that.
Well, I mean, you just have to think, you know, after 4 years and $120,000 worth of, you know, arguably one of the greatest educations that the world has to offer at Harvard. There's so many other opportunities and pathways that you could take as a young, bright, and even an African American. You know, there's like, oh man, you know, there's already so many African Americans that want to rap, or that, you know, that want to make music. Like, you know, why can't we have an incredible, you know, outlier? Why can't we have someone who's, you know, an incredible spokesperson?
But we can.
Another Barack Obama, so to speak, you know? And for me, it always, once again, comes back to what we touched on before, which is doing what you love to do. Doing what you love to do is the way that you're going to give the best to the world. And I knew that anything else that I did, whether it was, you know, taking a job at Boston Consulting Group, or, you know, even the community service and philanthropy initiatives in which I was involved, you know, I have a passion for those things, but none of them even remotely touches the passion that I have for live performance and music. But
they really helped prepare you for that experience.
Absolutely.
Because when you look at even the fact that you're building your brand in Europe, that's business acumen. If you didn't have that business acumen, you think you could do it?
Not without the right partners, not without the right management, not without the right team. And so something that's really unique about my team is that my team is actually built and trained from the ground up by myself.
Right.
So I'm self-managed, and when you look around at my team, you're gonna see young people that are all, you know, 23 years old and younger, just because I'm able to bring them in before they're jaded by their own successes or misses in the music industry. They're able to come in with a clean slate, and I can show them what I believe the future is going to be, and I can build a team that can manage the expectations and manage what we're going to do with a future-minded outlook, so to speak.
This is a good time for that. When you look at Frank Ocean and you look at Miguel, and these guys are kind of in a similar lane because they're not necessarily your traditional R&B guys. So what you've done now is you've been an R&B guy, you've established yourself, but now you're breaking in to the rap, and you can rap. What has that done for you? No, because a lot of people would think that you wouldn't, but you can rap.
Thank you, man.
And I'm shaking off my jet lag, lost 5 hours there, be there when I get back. I turn my swag on.
What has that done for you from a business standpoint?
First of all, I just look at I looked at where I wanted to be, you know, and you know, in my record Glory, I said, you know, I missed the festivals, Coachella and Bonnaroo, and when I looked, you know, as big as Trey Songz is, as big as Usher is, you know, until Usher, I believe, was doing more of the electronic dance music, he wasn't ever invited to play those festivals, you know. And when I look at my musical heroes, I look at like Jimi Hendrix, man, or I look at you know Janis Joplin, or you know, even Stevie Wonder, man, and I look at or even Bootsy Collins, man, and I look at the performances that really touched me and inspired me, and I see them playing on those festival stages, and I realize that suited up, super sexy. You know, that wasn't appealing to that audience at the festivals, man. And for me, that's where I want to play, man. I want to touch people at that level. I want to reach out and you know, have people responding the way that I see people responding to Hendrix. You
That's
know?
funny because usually when I see you, you do have a suit on. But last night at your show, you guys were busting push-ups in the backstage before the show in muscle T-shirts. You weren't playing, were you?
Nah,
I mean, the energy level that you bring to the show is something extraordinary.
Thank you.
Because you put in a lot of work.
Yes, absolutely.
Iconoclastic approach. You've always been your own person. A lot of the people that you probably listen to that are moguls in the industry had self-interest as well, because it is a business. And I can remember you telling me that you had a meeting with Tommy Mottola.
That's right.
And he told you, this is the percentage that we're going to offer you. Take it or leave it. And if you decide not to do it, I'm still going to have my plane. I'm still going to have my mansion. And at that point, you decided to go into the deal.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. What kind of thought process do you go through as a kid?
Well, I mean, you know, when you're 24 years old and you know, you're talking, you know, well over $500,000. You know, this is probably the biggest check that I had ever seen in my life, or even in my parents' life, you know, at one time, you know. And
this is coming from a kid whose parents were Salvation Army missionaries, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So, you know, my parents have really sacrificed everything that they had in the service of others, right? So they raised a family of 4 on $1,500 a month. I mean, even less, maybe $800 to $900 a month, right? And so to be sitting there and, you know, based on some music that I had created, to be looking at a $500,000 plus check and saying to myself, man, you know, what should I do here? I mean, I figured it, I considered it an investment in myself. And that was through some, you know, some coaxing from Tommy as well. He said, look, Ryan, why don't you consider this an investment in yourself? You know, you're going to be able to get set up. You're going to be able to pay your dad back, you know, because my dad had made a significant, he'd put himself in debt on a credit card to allow me to create music. I was able to write him a check for double that amount. And, you know, I mean, I just felt at that point, at that juncture, when I looked at the other options that I had, of course I could have waited it out, you know. Of course those copyrights went on to be worth millions of dollars, you know. I could have waited it out. But at that time, and I think anyone can relate to the idea that you still need cash to live. you know? You need cash to live, and in New York City, living is not cheap, you know? So, you know, there I was in a one-bedroom apartment in Harlem, went on to take over the whole brownstone, went on to not only take over that whole brownstone, but have another place so that I could separate live and work space on Central Park North, you know, with the elevator that opened into it. You know, these are all the dreams that you have as a young, just, you know, a guy that wants to be fly, a guy that wants to, you know, I wanted all the trappings of the rock star life, you know, and I don't think I should be blamed, or I don't think anyone could really blame me for wanting those things.
The crown prince, pride of my community, and when I fly, one diplomatic community, my passport is stamped out.
I get the sense that you did struggle at first with the perception or the stigma of education.
Yeah.
That having a Harvard degree sort of undermined your credibility in some people's eyes as an artist and producer. Is that true?
Well, I mean, it's almost, I feel like, and I think I'm even still dealing with it now. It's like, you know, can people really relate? You know, what percentage of the population worldwide can say that, you know, they went to an Ivy League school, you know? And then what even smaller percentage of the population can say that they went to an Ivy League school, you know, and was a senior in an Ivy League school at 19, or what even smaller percentage of the population can say that, you know, they scored so well on their achievement tests, you know, standardized achievement tests. And I realized over time, and, you know, I had interns that talked to me and said, Ryan, you're an unrelatable person. You know what I mean? So that's why your music isn't connecting, man, because the stuff that you're talking about, you know, I think people can see through the fact that you are actually intentionally trying to dumb it down. It's not really honest, you know. And I would have meetings with Tommy, and I would have meetings with, you know, people on his team, and, you know, they would say, well, Ryan, you know, the love songs and the R&B songs that you're writing, they're too elementary. They don't reflect your Harvard pedigree, you know. And you know, this is what I felt. And, you know, a couple of things. One is that, yeah, maybe those songs didn't reflect my Harvard pedigree, but at that time, you know, I already, like I said, I had just collected a check for like $500,000, and really what I was mostly interested in was just trying to woo the baddest girl that I possibly could. You know what I mean?
And you got a couple models eventually, right?
And, you know, those elementary love songs, you know, those spoke to the core of, you know, I feel like the albums that I wrote, my R&B albums, they weren't even really written for mass consumption. They were actually written specifically for, you know, whoever my love interest was at the time, because I already had the money, you know, as a producer. You know what I mean? I felt like I was missing love. I was missing that companion. I was missing that ace. I was missing my Jackie O, you know what I'm saying, so to speak.
So you've elevated
Yes.
With that as part of your identity. People are okay with it now.
Yes.
I wanted to go to your studio and get you to build a beat. But Robert told me, he said, he's trying to kind of get away from the producer persona. You're backing away from production or not?
I'm not backing away from production. I might be backing away from beat making per se.
Right,
you know, just the number of hours. I feel like I paid my dues in that respect, where I just spend hours and hours just putting a kick and a clap together. I'm really interested in making records now. And I'm interested not only in making records, but also in filmmaking. You know, my entire business, we're about to cross 60 million views on YouTube. You know, my entire business is really based on visual media fused with the music, giving people a window into my process, and then hopefully that serving as an advertisement for the live show, which I really believe is competitive with any of the best live shows.
At the Rolex stove, on the load of rose gold, costs 100 and both. That's a house on an arm, couple cars on the wrist. Yes, it says serve cold, it's a remarkable dish.
Do you believe that you were one of the first people to be a MySpace or a YouTube star, to actually have a cameraman follow you everywhere, document what you're eating for breakfast, where you're hanging out, and everything, and then promote that and get hundreds of thousands of followers? That's the model now.
Yeah.
You were doing that in the late 90s.
Yeah.
Where did you get it from? Or did you innovate it?
Well, I would just say that, you know, I've always been forward thinking. And so I won't say I was the first person to use YouTube, because I actually used it based on seeing someone else using it on MySpace. I just believe that I understood the power of it as a medium, and maximized it to put me in a position to do what I love to do and get paid
Justin
to do it.
Bieber came and did it.
Yeah.
And hundreds of artists have done it since. How long will that be the model for breaking as yourself as an artist?
I think that I think currently it's a cornerstone of creating an audience. And I believe that there are going to be, I think the music industry really is going to shift, in my opinion. I think the music industry is going to shift to people who are playing to the audiences that are genuinely interested in them. And I think that we'll be able to have build a sustainable lifestyle, even if you just have 1,000 fans. If you got 1,000 fans that are willing to pay you $100 a year for all of your music, plus a couple of tickets to a show, you know, you're living a middle-class American lifestyle. You know, luckily for me, I'm doing exponentially more than that, month over month. But I believe that I think that's going to be good for art and music and the culture.
One of the things that really touched me last night being backstage was the fact that here you guys were doing push-ups and drinking bottled water. And, you know, some of the things you see backstage for Rockstar, totally different scenario. Kids talking about startups, and I dropped out of college because I wanted to do production for Disney, and Ryan inspired me. It was really something that you've kind of molded your group to make sure that everybody is motivated and everybody is positive.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, I believe technology and advancements in technology and medicine are allow us to live longer. So, you know, there is a case for just, you know, you only live once, and you know, just going as hard as you can. I mean, I'm not, you know, I don't have anything against my hip hop counterparts who really enjoy marijuana, or you know, who really enjoy alcohol. I mean, it's just never been for me, man. I like bottled water and exercise and just being as explosive as I possibly can be on stage, man.
And you're doing you.
And I'm doing me.
Continue to move forward.
Thank you, brother.
Thanks for coming on
keep
the Business of Celebrity.
Appreciate it.
And with Ryan Leslie, I'm Lee Hawkins for the Business of Celebrity. We'll see you next time.
Trying to stay not fresh. At 90, you don't stay fresh. Let's put it that way. But I mean, to try to stay relevant.
Here's a guy that has so much bravado. Here's a guy that has, you know, talks all this big talk. Now he has to pay up, you know.